internationalist, you could get this buy-in. For example, it was easy to synchronize the U.S. Chamber of Commerce with the AFL-CIO, with the Union Street muscle. So USAID, just back at this whole USAID Truman show, and like I say this ever, there is nothing you can tell me that is not affected by the USAID Truman show. You want to talk about the music industry? I tell you about USAID's complete infiltration of the music industry.
How so?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so and maybe I can show receipts on screen here for a second. Do you want to? We'll start with an easy one because it's directly connected to what we were just talking about with Zunzuneo in Cuba. So if you go to this Max Blumenthal's outlet's called Gray Zone News, and again, I'm not trying to beat up on our foreign policy establishments, foreign policy on Cuba, or weigh into that, but this is how the sausage is made, and you're going to see a million examples of this in a second of this. But go to just type in on Google or any search engine, Gray Zone News, Cuban rappers, USAID. And you'll see this, and these are basically sponsored hip hop artists to write, to do revolutionary hip hop to appeal to the Afro-Cuban community, who the National Endowment for Democracy had identified as being a demographic. See, every time we do these operations, USAID, the NGOs, they'll submit what they call a baseline assessment or strategic assessment to the State Department, where they will do a demographic segmentation of all the demographics in the country, who's pro us, who's against us in the region, and then they will micro target the grants in the capacity building to capacity build the burning ember to turn it into a flame. So, for example, and just so you see this, you can go to the CI World Factbook right now. This is just the public-facing CI.gov. You can type in a random country like Burma on just typing CI World Book Burma. You'll see we keep meticulous tabs on the racial distribution, the religious distribution, the gender distribution, the heteronormative versus LGBT one. This is why USAID and NED were backing and supporting Pussy Riot in Russia, to do these, sort of insane, sort of feminist LGBTQ styled left-wing street riots. And this is what they, caused this international incident. You can see all the USAID and NED stuff on them for Pussy Riot is the music industry. And go to YouTube and look at their music videos if you want to see what state-sponsored music looks like. But in the Cuba case, NED had published this document. NED is the operations arm of USAID, and they get a ton of their grants through it, and they're a companion star. Said, okay, all of our previous attempts to overthrow the Cuban government failed. Well, something like 60% of the Cuban population is Afro-Cuban. They're radically underrepresented in the Cuban government. They have their own grievances around policing issues and around representation issues. And they even noted in the document that demographic, and I'm not saying this, Ned is saying this, in Cuba is disproportionately drawn to drugs, influenced by rap music, and suffers from overwhelming amount of youth unemployment. And so capacity building those desperate networks, capacity building, the anti-addiction programs will get you into the drug networks. Doing job fairs and getting these people on U.S. payroll will alleviate their pain points on employment. And they're predominantly listening to hip hop, so we need to work with, I believe the group is the San Ysidro movement. And I'm not beating up on it. You can make an argument that I'm not weighing in on whether this is good or bad. But the American people have to know this because this gets played on their radio stations in Miami. This gets, art testimonials to this are at, Art Basel in Miami every year. And this is the Truman Show around you. But you can read that Gray Zone report, for example, write up on that, on all the USAID funding, all the meetings with the U.S. ambassador and Western Hemisphere Assistant Secretary folks. How the whole thing was. You can talk about musicians like Dua Lipa. You're familiar with Dua Lipa?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, Don't Stop Now. She's a million of these great hits. fantastic musician. I'm a big fan on the music side. Dua Lipa won the Distinguished Leadership Award, I forget if it was last year or the year before, from the Atlantic Council. The Atlantic Council. That's the same organization that we played on screen during our first conversation, where we went over the Atlantic Council, holding up I call bullshit placards, BS, and looking at Trump tweets and training hundreds of journalists for how to flag and censor him saying tweets like witch hunt or Brexit slogans for, cheaper health care. The Atlantic Council, who has 7 CIA directors, 7 former number 1 heads of the CIA on its board of directors, that gets direct grant funding from the Pentagon, the State Department, and USAID. The Atlantic Council, who had a formal partnership agreement with Burisma.